Hello, and welcome back, most illustrious members of the detail. I hope you enjoyed your day off from listening to me, but you're back on the clock now. Today, we have an evolution of last video's deck that gets a little sneakier and a little thicker. I hope you enjoy. So just before we get into it, weirdly, taking a day off seems to have been really good for my subscriber count. I should do it more often. We are growing in leaps and bounds. I appreciate everyone's support, who continues to support, who just, leaves good comments. We got a lot of really great videos coming up, as requested by Discord members. This one was it was inspired by a Discord member, though this is an evolution of that idea, but even just the initial idea has brought me new thoughts on how to deck design. It's the thing I was talking about with, memories gained and lost and regained and lessons relearned and stuff. Oh, it's so cool. Okay, so let's get into it. This is a deck that looks a lot like the last deck that we featured, but it has some improvements. It's called Sneaky Seamen, because the other fish, they weren't so sneaky. This one's very sneaky. So basically, I came to the realization playing the last deck that we aren't, while Namor and Attuma are technically quite overstated. Atuma's a little overstated. Namor's quite overstated. We aren't really winning on the backs of the stats. We also had Orca in the last one, and Orca is also quite overstated with a drawback. It's not really that we're winning by putting 11 power into a lane. It's that we're winning because when we get to turn 6, our opponent is going, well, yeah, they have 11 power there, but if they add a card, they'll lose 5 power. Or like with Attuma, if they add a card, Attuma will be destroyed. And so they're mathing it out with the understanding that while we have 11, we have to add 6 before we get to 12, right? As silly as that sounds. Like, we could add the most dangerous 1-drop in the game, which is Titania, to this lane on turn 6, and we'd only have stayed at 11. And so when our opponent is mathing out what they actually have to beat, they're mathing it correctly as if this, really is only a 4-6, because like when we go to add to that lane, it will be. And we are taking advantage of that via, here we go, Hulkbuster, which can add 4 power without adding a card to a lane. Mr. Fantastic, which can add 2 power without adding a card to a lane. Claw, which can add 6 power without adding a card to a lane. And Green Goblin, which can add 3 power without adding a card to a lane, functionally, right? The other thing is that we just kind of really wanted to make Hulkbuster work as a kindness to Grak. Because he really likes this card and includes it in all of his decks, and it's always the first card I tell him to cut. So we have a secondary plan, and that secondary plan is Angela. And so, because we have a bunch of cards that can add power to a lane while not taking up a spot in the form of Green Goblin and Hulkbuster, and then kind of Nightcrawler, what we're going to do is you're going to play Angela, and then you're going to be able to put like Green Goblin on 3 into the Angela lane. That will give Angela +2, and then Green Goblin will go to their side and take up one of their spots. And then you could like Hulkbuster, and it'll give Angela +4, and then it'll give her +2 from her own effect, and then she still won't have any cards in her lane with her. And then you could like put Claw there and give Angela +2, and then again +4 from the Claw, and then, have still buffed the lane to the right. And then the final thing is that we can if our opponent, again, is like trying to beat the Namor or the Attuma, again, kind of like with the thought pattern that, well, they can't add anything here, we can Magneto and pull some of their stuff out of that lane as a functional way to add more. You know, it's not exactly adding more power, but this Angela lane can get really massive. And so, like, just being able to Magneto on turn 6 and force them to fight you in the Angela lane can be really, really good. Armor is there, one, to just kind of protect. Like, again, our Angela is going to get thick with a Q, and so we need to be able to protect her. It also stops, obviously, Attuma from getting blown up, and it stops Magneto from getting shanked. And then the final thing it does sometimes is if you suss out that your opponent might have ways to destroy their own stuff, like Carnage or Deathlock, you can go armor into Green Goblin. And armor's also just a tech card. Armor's fine. Like, you know, again, for the destroy decks, like, if your opponent just puts down a Bucky Barnes and you just armor that lane, you're usually in a really good spot. So that's the deck. That's it. It's a ton of fun. Honestly, I'm kind of in my hero arc right now, and this is like a very, very hero-ass deck. This deck is not the most you could be doing. If you are against the, like, something that has a lot of synergy, like a deck that's like playing like Wong Mystique, you aren't going to win because you cannot produce enough stats. It doesn't matter. Like, literally, they're like, okay, well, no matter how many stats they add to the Namor lane, unless they play Cosmo on me, like, I'm going to win. You can sometimes win the Galactus matchup. Honestly, that's kind of why I made the change. I hit Galactus a couple of times with the other deck, and it just does not have an out to Galactus most of the time. With this one, being able to Magneto, because if they go wave on 3, and you follow it up with a Magneto, because you'll probably have priority, because, like, your low-cost cards have a lot of power, you can Magneto their wave into the lane that you think they're going to Galactus and shut it off, and then just win off the back of that. You could snap into it even. We always had the out to Green Goblining them, but this we now have 2 outs instead of 1, basically. But I think Magneto is just better than Orca. I'm so sorry. I wanted to make the fish theme work. I think this still counts as a fish theme Hulkbuster deck, but Orca is just not as good. So some replacements. If you don't have Magneto, because I know he's pool 3, he's a really good pickup. Honestly, like, if you don't have Magneto and you can pick a card from pool 3 and he shows up, you could pick him. You might not have Green Goblin, you might not have Zero, and you might not have Attuma. These are all pool 3 cards. I'd say all of them except for Attuma are even probably worth picking up, and Attuma's not bad. Attuma is not a bad card, but it's the weakest of these. Zero, Goblin, and Magneto go in a lot more decks. Attuma doesn't go in that many. For replacements, you could do pool 2, pool 1, 2. Magneto could be Spectrum. We have, what, 1, 2, 3, 4. We have 5 ongoing cards. That's enough. That's enough for Spectrum. You could make this kind of even the Spectrum Destroyer. Destroyer's a pool 3. Spectrum's a fine card. It can add power in ways that our opponent doesn't see coming. I don't think it's as good as Magneto. I think you could also just do Hulk for the Magneto slot. I think instead of Green Goblin, Cosmo is a perfectly viable card. Let's see what else. So we got these replaced, these 2 replaced. For Attuma, that's kind of the hard one, because simultaneously it's kind of what the deck is doing, and kind of not that impressive. Oh, I'm not selling you on this idea, am I? Because, like, a 4/10 that only kind of combos with Armor, Hulkbuster, and Green Goblin isn't great. Like, it's not the best card. It just kind of catches your opponent off. So, it could be could be like Jessica. I could genuinely, you know what? It might even be better as Jessica Jones, because then it's only a 4/8, and you can add other cards without needing armor. I don't know. It's like I think Jessica Jones could be a Tuma, even as I've pointed it out. I will say 0 Atuma is also a combo, and I didn't mention that. And 0 Jessica Jones is terrible. Grak was playing Hobgoblin. That does synergize with Namor and Atuma and Angela in all the ways that I've already outlined. I just don't like Hobgoblin because while it is usually not optimal to fill a lane on turn 5, sometimes your opponent is just going to do that, like, by accident, or, like, because of necessity. They might just fill a lane. And if they do, that's really bad, right? Like, that's very, very bad for you to have a -8 on your own side of the field. But it is still a possibility. It's not unheard of for that to be the card. I think I value something more in the 4-drop slot than the 5, but Hobgoblin is a reasonable card. And then what else? We need a 1-drop. Oh, 0 can be Sunspot. Like, I like 0 more for what we're doing, but there are times it can be awkward because, like, 0 in this list is good with, like, half the cards. Like, you know, it's good with Atuma, Lizard, sometimes Magneto. Like, sometimes you want your Magneto to just be a 6/12. You want it to be Hulk instead of Magneto. And sometimes you don't care about Nightcrawler or Hulkbuster having their effects. And very, very rarely you want Green Goblin to not go to your opponent's side. If you have Bar with no name, you can go 0 Green Goblin and win that location and they don't see it coming. Very rare off chance. But there's this weird dichotomy because a lot of the time you don't want to silence your stuff. You don't ever want to silence Claw, basically. You don't ever want to silence Angela, basically. So 0 can be a weird one. I really like him because of the things he allows this deck to do, but Sunspot would be just as good, if not better, in a lot of situations. I just like 0 because, again, this game plan isn't to win on stats. It's to win in creative ways that your opponents go, why would I play around that? that's the fun and the way that you win with this deck. So thank you so much for watching. If you find my content elucidating, enlightening, or enriching, or you just have ideas for videos you'd like to see in the future, topics you'd like covered, the best way to let me know is with a comment down below. A subscription goes a long way, joining the Discord even more. While I like seeing the subscription number go up, I like having new voices added to my community, probably even more than that. And everyone who has been added has been just so wonderful. You're all so much fun to talk to. I hope I can meet more of you, and I hope that you have a great day, and I will see you all tomorrow.